Hey guys, it's Kevin again, the writer for The Americans, Season 3, Episode 11, One Day in the Life of Anton Baklanov. And you guys know that I was definitely looking forward to this episode. Obviously, I mean, last week's episode might just be the best episode of the entire show. It was so well done the way they did it, and I was very interested in seeing how this episode would be, because now that Paige knew their secret, I was wondering if the entire, show was going to change, and it really did. I mean, while it is the same show, it definitely feels a lot different now, and I really love the fact that Paige knows. It's just made the show so much more interesting, and I absolutely love that. And I can't wait. And of course, this episode definitely was not as good as last week's, but it still was an amazing episode and had a lot to love in this episode. And I'm definitely looking forward to the last two episodes of the season. Holy shit, there's two episodes left this season. I can't believe it. But let's just get in this episode because it was amazing. So Elizabeth and Philip, of course, they are still very confused. They don't know what Paige is going to do. They're whispering in the kitchen first thing in the morning. They're talking about, is Paige going to go to school? And Paige just completely, barges in. And you can see that she's still pretty mad, which is understandable. I mean, just the fact that, they told her all these things and she still doesn't know how to react to it. She still has a lot of questions and she wants to know pretty much everything. First of all, she asks for their real names, and they say their real names, Mishka and Nadeshda, and she asks if Stan's gonna arrest them, why they're friends with him, and Philip says that they are friends with him, and they tell her to keep it down because she's gonna end up telling Henry, and she asks if she's really their daughter, is Henry really her brother, and it's a really well done scene when we saw that. I mean, I definitely really enjoyed that. She asked why they didn't have accents. And I mean that was a good. I think these were all really good questions. It's just that she's asking them at the wrong time, and I understand why she's asking these questions. Obviously, she wants to know more about what's going on. She's very confused. She just wants to know more information. I mean, just think about it. How could she process all this? She still needs to know what's fully going on, and she doesn't even know if she's really their daughter. And there's a lot of things she still does not know about, and basically they don't get to answer these questions because then Henry comes down and he sits down and eats pancakes and his parents, bustle around like nothing's wrong. I was surprised. Paige just sits down at the table and basically just plays the lawn. She acts like nothing's wrong, and you see look on Elizabeth's face and she's like, wow, Paige is actually going to listen to us. And I was surprised by that. I thought Paige would turn against them. And I still kind of feel like that could happen, but we'll see. I still kind of feel like Paige might end up not fully trusting them. I will say this. If they think that they can get Paige on a mission, that's not going to happen. Like, Paige is not going to go on a mission with them. She's too upset, but you do see in this episode that she is starting to figure out what's going on. So, at work, Stan visits Gad in his office, and he asks him about an incident back in August, and he's making a list of everything that was ever said in his office that should have been said in the vault, and Stan explains that they thought they were safe in his office, and Gad doesn't want to hear it, and there's a vault for a reason. They need to be more careful what they discuss. And obviously, they're worried about the whole thing with the bug and everything, and of course, Stan is still very suspicious of Martha, and I was interested in seeing what was going to happen there, and I thought that was really a really good scene. But then we get to one of the big highlights of the episode, because of course Elizabeth and Phillip them visit Gabriel, and they tell him right away that they told Paige about the truth and that they're spies, and he asks how much they told her, and they say that they didn't reveal the full details, but she does know that they're spies, and Gabriel's really proud of them. He didn't think they had that in them, but he's really proud of them. He says that they did the right thing, and basically they're worried how the center's going to react, and he says he'll take care of it. He'll take care of now the center knows, and he'll take care of all that. And he then asks about the hotel, and Elizabeth says she has a way in with the hotel manager because that's their big mission right now. And Philip is meeting Yusuf later that night, and Gabriel has another envelope for Elizabeth, and this is just really sad overall from back home. And her mother, we find out, is now dying, and there's not gonna be many more days left. She's dying, and she's gonna die in a few days, and it's really sad because again, her mother's dying, and it's just really sad overall. And basically, after the meeting with Gabriel, Philip asks Elizabeth if she's sure everything is okay at the hotel, and she reassures him that it's fine. And she also tells Philip that when he goes to visit Martha, he should bring Hans with him, which I thought was interesting that she suggested that. So basically, then Elizabeth goes undercover as Michelle and visits her friend Lisa and her husband Maurice. Now, this I thought was really interesting, and I'm very interested in seeing where this is actually going to go because if this is going where I think it's going to go, I'm very interested in seeing what they end up doing here. Because Lisa explains that they're having money problems and they're going to lose their house, and they want in on the legal consulting gigs that Michelle is working. And Lisa can use her high security clearance at the factory, and basically Elizabeth agrees to talk to her boss Jack and get Lisa in, and she's happy about that and everything. But after Lisa goes to the kitchen to get coffee for Maurice, Maurice is telling Michelle that he knows that she's really in on the charge and that there's nobody named Jack, so he's on to her. So does he know what's actually going on? Is he gonna find out some of the raw information? I don't know what's gonna happen, but I kind of feel like they're gonna have to kill him. I really do. I mean, he is gonna find out too much information, and they, even though they can't they can't tell people the truth. Obviously, she's not gonna tell him the truth. So is he gonna find out on his own? I mean, I'm really worried about what's gonna happen there. Definitely. I mean, it's one thing Paige knowing, but Maurice, who's a total stranger and they don't know too much about him, I'm very worried about him knowing because now he's on to them, and I'm thinking now he might know what's actually going on, but. I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but I found that to be really interesting overall. So Phillip meets with Yusuf for intel, and they're talking about Annalise and how Yusuf still thinks about her. And I like that they kept mentioning Annalise in this episode because she was a big part of Philip's life. I mean, he was with her for 3 years. She was his, um, basically like CI and everything, and she worked for him. And now she's dead, and obviously it had a big impact on him. We really see that impact that it had on him in this episode. And basically says the CIA asked his country for commanders with the best language skills, and the CIA is a new weapon system and light and easy to use. And if it can knock helicopters and aircrafts out of the sky, the Afghans are saying that the CIA three of their men. And he says he needs the names of the men that the CIA is recruiting. So that's basically their mission. And then we get this amazing scene here. This scene I absolutely loved. I loved this scene, and just this is probably one of the highlights of the season, honestly. Probably the highlight of the episode. I love this scene. Because Elizabeth heads home that night and Paige is just sitting in the car in the garage in the dark, and she can see that she's really upset, and she climbs in with Paige and explains that she knows she has questions, but they can only talk about this when they know that no one else can possibly hear them. Because, of course, obviously, Paige has questions, but they can't just answer all of them at her beck and call. She needs to understand that, and I understand Paige doesn't fully understand what's going on, that she's going crazy. I mean, she's not really sane right now, so I can understand why she wants these questions right now. I mean, if my parents told me that they were spies, yeah, I'd probably do the same thing. So Paige tells her that she understands, and Elizabeth tries to tell Paige about her family and childhood, and she goes into this really long story about her family life and basically um how she tells about her family life and growing up in the Soviet Union, and basically it really is a great moment because you see that Elizabeth can finally share her family life with her daughter, and that's something that she's always wanted. She's always wanted to tell her daughter the truth, and now she can because her daughter knows the truth, which is just something I really enjoyed watching. And as I said, I was very interested in seeing how this episode was going to play with that, and that was one of the things that I loved seeing in this episode was the way they handled that. That was really well done, and definitely one of the highlights of the episode by far was her telling Paige all about how her mother yelled at the other family, sharing their apartment to quiet down. And when Elizabeth needed to sleep, however, Elizabeth doesn't remember much about her father because he died in the war when she was 2. And basically, I thought that was really well done, but here's the thing. Paige then tells her, I love what Paige says to her after this. She says, "How can I believe anything you say?" And honestly, I think that honestly is a really good question because think of all the stuff they've been hiding from her. She doesn't know if, they're lying. She doesn't know if they're, if they're if they, are trying to get information out of her. She knows they're spies and she's not dumb. She knows what spies do. So, I like that Paige is asking her this because she really doesn't know if she can trust her, if she can believe anything she says, and I really love that scene. It's very tragic, but that's how Paige is reacting to this. And I really like the way Paige is reacting. It's very realistic. She's not going off the deep end. She just is really confused and doesn't really know how to react to all this, which I really like seeing. So Arkady calls Oleg into his office. It's time to brief him on Operation Zephyr, and Arkady reveals that they have a listening device planted in the FBI's offices, and he needs English-speaking people he can trust to go over all the transcripts and figure out what kind of products the FBI is working on. That is where Oleg comes in. So Oleg's basically going to get the information and find out what the FBI is working on, and that's basically what they're going to do there. So Phillip gets dressed as Clark and heads home to Martha, and this scene reminded me a lot of last year's scene with Oleg and Nina. Remember when Nina needed Oleg to focus? When Oleg needed to focus, it was very similar to this scene. So she reveals that Walter is going to interview her again. She's very paranoid because she thinks that he knows that she's lying. And we know that Stan is very suspicious. We know that he's starting to become, he's starting to think that she could be a suspect. And this scene, I was on the edge of my seat. I really loved it, and I absolutely love this next scene because Clark reassures her that Walter doesn't have superpowers, and there's no way that he can tell whether or not she's telling the truth. I mean, he could use a lie detector. I could definitely see him using a lie detector, but that's really the only thing he could do. So unless he doesn't use a lie detector, she's good. And Clark sits down with Martha and gives her some tips on how to get away with lying. And I really love the scene because not only are we talking about how Clark lies, but also how Phillip does. I mean, everything he says when he's in disguise is a lie, and he's professional at that. That's what his job is, and I really loved seeing this scene. And he gives her some tips on how to get away with lying and not appearing guilty. He makes sure to repeat after him that she says, "I have no idea who put that thing in Agent Gad's pen," and she has to like raise her eyebrows. And I thought that was a really well done scene. I definitely really enjoyed it, and just seeing Philip is experienced with lying and that kind of thing, I definitely really enjoyed it, and I think it was honestly one of the big highlights of the episode. Definitely love that. So Elizabeth's on a date with the hotel manager. He had the chef prepare a special dinner, and I honestly do like these two together. I do. I mean, I understand it's just for Elizabeth it's just a mission, but I really like this guy. I think he's good for her. And after she's done eating, Elizabeth gets up from the table, sits on the manager's lap. She refuses to seduce him and leads him to the bed, but unfortunately, she tells him that they can't continue what they're doing, and I kind of felt bad for him because like they're making out and everything. It looks like they're about to have sex, but she's like, not today, and she just leaves him. And I thought that was kind of funny. So um, I really enjoyed that scene overall. I thought that was really good. So Nina's busy working on the side. Anton. If she wins over his trust, she was told her crimes would be pardoned, and she searches his room, prison cell, while he is out and finds letters that he has written to his son Jacob. And I was wondering what she was going to do with these letters because obviously now she knows about this and he didn't tell her about this. And the next day, while they're eating, Nina confesses that she found the letters and she promises that she won't tell anyone about them. What is he going to do about these letters? Like, what is she going to do here? Is she going to help him? I don't really know where this is going, but I'm interested. Definitely, I'm intrigued. I don't know where we're going, but I really do love that. So the next day, Philip meets with Gabriel at the park. He updates him on the hotel operation, and basically he has a big favor to ask, and he tells Gabriel he wants him to arrange a trip for Elizabeth to see her mother one last time. And I like that he really wants this to happen to Elizabeth. I definitely really enjoyed the scene overall. And Gabriel says he understands, but there's no way that is going to happen. He just knows that he cannot make it happen. He wants to do it, but he just can't make it happen. And it's against the center's rules. They can't do that. And because, one of the big rules when you're in the center is that you can't visit your parents after you become a spy. And it's really sad overall, but they have to deal with that. And Philip really wants Elizabeth to see her mother one last time. And Philip snaps on Gabriel. And I love what he says to Gabriel. He has been doing a lot for the center lately and hasn't gotten anything in return. He tells Gabriel he can't keep hearing no. One of these times he's going to have to hear a yes, and then he storms off, which is true. Every time he asks something to Gabriel that doesn't involve Paige and what he wants, what the center wants, Gabriel says no. He needs to try to, if he really cares about them, he needs to try to get the center to say yes. He really does. I mean, we know how close of a relationship they've had with him, but it's really starting to fall apart because he's just not being as trustworthy as you remember. He's not being the best, he's not being as good. He's not being the best handler. I definitely feel like he's a really good handler, but he needs to be more of their friend and less of a handler. So, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen next week, especially because we see next week that Claudia is returning. So I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. So the next night, Elizabeth has another date with Neil, the hotel manager, and he gives her a tour of his offices and their computer system. And basically, There's a disruption on the front desk, leaves her alone in the office. She accesses the computer, makes copies of his office keys. When Neil returns, Elizabeth says she has to go. He kisses her, gives her a room key, tells her to meet him in room 308 in 10 minutes. She turns him down, and again, I thought that was kind of funny. Runs out of the office, and she gets home late, gets undressed, climbs into bed with Phillip. She wakes up in the morning, and Phillip is lying there staring at her. And he tells her that he thinks he has found a way to see her mother, and I was really happy that he did that. Obviously, he's going against the center's rules, but I don't think Philip really gives a shit. I don't think he gives a shit that he's going against the center's rules. I don't think he cares really, because what he cares about is getting Elizabeth to see her mother. That's what matters to him. But before I can tell her anything, there's a knock, and luckily it's Paige, and basically she asks what they're talking about, and again, it's just a great moment because she can know what they're talking about. She can be in their conversation. Basically, Philip confesses that she has a grandmother in Russia and she's very sick, and Elizabeth isn't allowed to go see her though. So this is kind of making me think maybe Paige is gonna see their grandmother, because I mean Paige could. Paige is not a spy yet. Maybe she could visit their grandmother, kind of think that's where we're going. And I know that the season finale has Paige and Elizabeth going on some type of mission. So maybe the mission is to see their grandmother. I mean, is to see her mother. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But this was a great episode as usual. Love this episode. A lot to talk about though. I don't know if Gabriel's gonna be able to get Paige to really, do the whole thing he wants her to do. Is she really gonna try? Is she really gonna get her to, join this, do what the center wants? I don't think that's gonna work. Like Philip said, he needs to tell them no, and he needs to say yes and stop saying no. Like, he needs to listen to them more, and I like that Philip said that because it's true. He does need to listen to them more. Um, Let's talk about Martha. I'm worried about Martha. I don't know if I hope, Philip gave her really good advice about what to do, but hopefully Martha takes that into account, because she does really need to listen to what he said to her, because it's really important what she needs to do there, but we'll see what happens. Maurice. Does Maurice know their secret? I'm not going to say he does. I don't know if he does. I just kind of feel like maybe he knows something. I don't know if he knows exactly that they're spies, but he definitely is on to them. He can tell that Michelle, is not really Michelle. He doesn't know exactly who they are, but I kind of feel like they're going to have to kill him. I really do. I mean, think of what they had to do with that older woman. They had to kill her because they told her everything. So, just like the older woman, they're gonna have to kill Maurice. I definitely feel like that's what's gonna have to happen there. Um, and I definitely really enjoyed that overall. Also, I liked hearing about Martha's past relationship with Chris. I forgot to talk about that. We did find out that Martha had a past relationship with Chris, and that, when he died, she felt really upset about it. And I enjoyed that scene overall because it shows how far her character has come, definitely. Um, the whole thing with Arkady and Oleg, is their plan gonna work? I don't know if their plan's gonna work. We'll see what happens there. What is Nina gonna do with these letters? Is she going to, help out Anton? I don't know what she's gonna do with them, but we'll see. Um, what is gonna happen with what is gonna happen now with Paige? I mean, I'm very interested in seeing. I mean, do you think Paige really trusts her parents right now? I don't think she does. I don't think she trusts them. I think she knows what they're doing. I just don't really think she trusts her parents right now. And it's understandable why she doesn't trust her parents. I mean, they haven't been trustworthy to her, and till now they haven't really told her the truth. So I can understand why she doesn't really trust them right now. But that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys saw this episode. Overall, guys, love this episode. And next week's episode looks absolutely amazing. I can't wait for the return of Claudia, and I really hope that Gabriel doesn't ruin this whole Paige thing. I really hope he doesn't, but we'll see what happens in the next episode. That's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for the pilot of The Comedians. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.